Hi guys, and welcome back to another episode of Celebrity Dating Tips, where we're going to be analysing the relationships of the stars and talking about the lessons that you can be learning to help you with your own dating life. My name's Adam.
And I'm Amanda. Today we're going to talk about the big Mel Gibson fiasco.
Ooh, that's pretty
It's all over in the news. You've probably heard the tapes, but Mel is being accused, and there's audio evidence of him verbally assaulting his baby mama, Oksana.
And this has been going on for weeks now. Like, there's literally parody videos and audio all across the internet where you can hear about all of the things that he's saying.
Now the issue is, we all get frustrated in our relationships. There's always a bit of drama that comes up. There's always some sort of fight that you might get in. But the question is, how far is too far when it comes to fighting with your mate?
Yeah, and when exactly do you know that you should break this off and move on and find somebody else?
That's the difficult question. A lot of us, when we get into relationships, we end up becoming very reliant on the other person. We look to the other person for stability, emotionally, in some cases financially, for that kind of stability, especially if you have a child with them. It's even harder. But the question is, like we said, when do you break it off and how do you know when to move on?
I think the key is to look at the beginning of the relationship. And it's something I always say to people is, if within the first few weeks of the relationship you start finding that the other person's like, no, spend some time with me, don't go out with your friends, come and hang out with me, then it becomes really easy to be like, okay, yeah, like I'll see you, we've only just met and this is all the really good honeymoon period, yeah, let's spend the night together, I'll just tell my friends I'll cancel. Well, 6 months to a year down the line, that turns into, no, you can't go out with your friends, you're staying in with me, and it becomes a very controlling relationship. Now, I'm not saying that happens all the time, but I am saying it's a very good indicator that you might be with somebody who's a little bit controlling, and it's those kind of tendencies that can lead to other things.
Oftentimes, like you said, the controlling starts off really small. It starts off with the little things, and then it tends to kind of snowball effect into the bigger ones, where you're ending up in a situation where you're being verbally, physically abused, and that's what you really want to make sure that you're avoiding. The key to that is to make sure that you keep your independence early on in the relationship. It's great to spend a lot of your time with the person that you're with. It's great to be with them, but when you start seeing signs of jealousy, maybe a little bit of aggressiveness, a little bit of rudeness in the speaking towards you, that's when you want to make sure that you kind of pull back and assess really what's going on and if that's the kind of relationship that you want to be in.
Yeah, there's been a load of psychological studies into this actually, and they almost all dictate that signs of early jealousy that's unprovoked or unwarranted or just general negative emotions resulting from jealousy is almost always a sign that something down the line could be negative. Now, believe it or not, there are actually positive signs of jealousy. If when they get jealous of you, they try and spend more time with you, or but in a positive way by maybe taking you out, by buying you flowers or just doing all these kind of like really nice over-the-top behavior, it's actually a sign that although they might be being jealous, they're actually not being negatively jealous, they're trying to win you back. And in those situations, you're not normally going to find that the person is going to take things towards an abusive stance. But if they're trying to get controlling, if they're trying to absorb all your time, following you, chasing you, stalking you, accusing you of things, then these are signs that you're probably heading down a really dark path.
You want to make sure that you cut it off from the beginning and make sure it doesn't lead that way, because that only leads to trouble.
Yeah, I think with any relationship, it's key to set boundaries. You want to know what is and isn't acceptable. And you should lay these out quite early on. You say to somebody, listen, just so you know, my time with my friends is important to me and I will be taking it. And if you cause another problem, if you get upset with me, if you accuse me of something, the next time I go out with my friends, that will be the last time. And then you have to follow through. It doesn't work if you make that statement that that's what you're going to do and then you forgive them and see them later. A boundary has to be a boundary. And after it's crossed, if they know what the boundary is, then that has to be the end of the relationship.
None of this 3 strikes and you're out kind of thing. You need to be very firm. 1 strike, it's done.
Let them know in advance. 1 strike.
1 strike.
And as always, we have a question that's written in from one of you viewers out there, which we're going to take some time to answer now. And
this question is from Chris Ramirez, 1065562.
Yeah, 1015562. Chris Ramirez, 1015562.
There you go.
There you go.
And Chris asks, can't you just impress a woman with being yourself and not with what you say?
Yeah, if you're awesome, that's great. But the problem is, most of the things that makes us awesome are things that we have to get across in conversation. And if you haven't done awesome, amazing things, it can be very hard to have those kind of interesting conversations. So many people are like, oh, just be yourself and you'll be fine. Well, that's great if being yourself is somebody who's talkative, capable of holding a conversation down, and you've actually got some life experience to pull from.
The only way that you won't have to say things to kind of impress a woman and get her to like you is if she already knows who you are. For Brad Pitt, for example, doesn't really need to say much to get girls to love him because they already do. So unless you're in a situation where you're the Brad Pitt of your social group, you're gonna have to let someone know the things that you've done, things that you've achieved, what you've liked, what you don't like, so that they can get to know you a little bit more.
Yeah, and there's so many ways you can be that person in different settings. For example, if you're part of, say, any extra kind of extracurricular activity, something you're doing outside of work, maybe you organize a club, or maybe you know, go to a gym, organize a gym group, or anything like that. If you're in charge of that and you're doing the organizing, then you're the most awesome person there. And you don't really need to try and talk to someone and prove how great you are, because you're being great. If you go out to a social life and you're hanging out with a big group of friends, or you know people when you're out, you know the staff, the bouncers, the waitresses, again, you're being cool and people are going to see that, and you're not going to have to talk about the things that you do. However, if someone's just meeting you cold, maybe in a coffee shop in the middle of the day, then you're going to have to actually hold a conversation.
You have to get to know them, and that does come through speaking to them and letting them know a little bit more about you. Just remember, there's a big difference between speaking and getting to know someone and bragging. Make sure that you're not bragging, that's a bit too try hard. Just be a genuine person and let them get to know you so that you can get to know them, and then they'll get to see who you really are.
Yeah. You're going to be bragging if you're somebody who's trying to explain how great you are, talk about all your achievements. You're going to be talking about your life experiences if you're listening to what the other person is saying and relating to something similar that you've done. For example, if you're talking to somebody and you find out that they're really into skydiving and you once went rock climbing, and on the face of it they're not the same thing, but they're both outdoor sports, and you can drop that and be like, well yeah, you know, I've been rock climbing but I've never got around to going skydiving.
I like adventure also.
Exactly, and then use that to bounce off and to create a commonality between you and them, that you can talk about your life experiences without being, hey, so nice to meet you. By the way, I've climbed 7 mountains. I'm
So I think the outline of this is to make sure that you set boundaries in the relationship and don't let them get crossed, so that you don't find yourself in an abusive situation like Mel Gibson and Oksana. And let someone get to know you by having a genuine connection with them, getting to know them, finding some kind of common ground with you, and just being a great, genuine person. But it does come through communication.
Perfect. And as always, guys, if you've got any questions that you want to get answered on the show, then just fill in the comment section down below, and make sure that you subscribe so that you can
subscribe so that you can get the updates.
Perfect. Cheers, guys. See you soon. Bye. The camera. Okay.
Alright.